Chapter 27-24. Boom! A blood-red light fell from the sky where Luo Qingtong was and enveloped her. Yi Qianqian's heart skipped a beat when he saw this. The scene of Luo Qingtong being taken away from him for no reason appeared in his mind. Without any hesitation, he appeared beside Luo Qingtong from where Yu Mingqian was. Qingtong! He grabbed Luo Qingtong's hand and in the next second, the two of them disappeared in the blood-red light. When they disappeared, Yu Mingqian's figure also disappeared from the inscription pattern array in an instant because Yi Qianqian's power was no longer blocking him. Luo Qingtong. Before he left, Yu Mingqian watched Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian disappear before his eyes. He had really lost completely this time. Not only did he not obtain any information about the inscription of God, but he also did not obtain the ancient divine item in this abandoned continent. Looking at the might of this blood-red city and the tyrannical power of the torch dragon outside, the two blood-red bracelets were clearly abnormally powerful. Unfortunately, they did not belong to him. And Luo Qingtong. She was clearly only in the venerable realm, but she had escaped from his hands again and again. It could be said that if not for Luo Qingtong's continuous escape and delay, Yu Mingqian would not have faced Yi Qianxian at all. Yu Mingqian did not know how Yi Qianxian could be so powerful. He was only in the sky martial realm, but he could instantly lock down the time and space around him, making it impossible for him to escape through the inscription pattern array. However, if Luo Qingtong had fallen into his hands from the beginning, he would have left with her and the two blood-red bracelets long ago. How could Yi Qianxian have caught up to him? All of this was because of Luo Qingtong. That woman, in Yu Mingqian's mind, the image of Luo Qingtong recovering her identity as a woman by the river appeared. Her gaze deepened, and in the end, her figure completely disappeared into the inscription pattern array. Boom! When Yu Mingqian disappeared, Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian appeared in a blood-colored hall. That hall was extremely spacious, as if it was situated in the endless void, boundless and limitless. There was only a blood-red statue sitting on the throne at the very top. Its eyes were slightly lowered as it looked at them. The throne seemed to have been forged with countless blood and sharp weapons, shining with a cold, cold light. At the same time, there seemed to be countless streams of blood flowing on the throne. Countless sharp white bone spikes protruded from the edges of the throne and surrounded it. It looked like they were protecting the throne. White bone spikes were forged from fresh blood. Everything indicated the extraordinary origin of this throne and the bloodthirsty and domineering aura of the owner of this throne. The blood-red statue sitting on the throne was the same one in the square of Blood City outside. Luo Qingtong looked at the statue on the throne, and the strange sense of familiarity in her heart came again. She must have seen this person somewhere before. But why couldn't she remember? This blood-red statue was the same as the previous one. Its face was also shrouded in mist, so Luo Qingtong could not see its face clearly. Yi Qianxian, who was beside her, pulled Luo Qingtong's figure into his arms the moment he appeared in this blood-colored hall, protecting her. Chapter 27-25. This place is a projection world. A projection world. Luo Qingtong looked at him. Yes. Yi Qianxian sized up the huge blood-colored hall, scanning it from top to bottom, left to right. This place is not a real world, but a projection. This blood-colored palace is not here. Where we are is a place that it has projected through who knows how many thousands of miles. Luo Qingtong immediately understood when Yi Qianxian said this. It was like a mirage. It seemed to appear in front of her, but in fact, it was far away from her. But how did she appear in this blood-colored hole? Luo Qingtong thought, then looked at the two blood-colored bracelets on her wrists. Could it be because of these two bracelets? Luo Qingtong looked down, and Yi Qianxian followed her gaze and noticed the two bracelets. Did you get these from the statue? Then they should be the reason why you appeared in this blood-colored hole. Yi Qianxian did not see how Luo Qingtong obtained the bracelets. He was dealing with Yu Mingqian at the time. Yes. Luo Qingtong nodded. She looked at the blood-colored statue on the throne, thought for a moment, and said to Yi Qianxian, "Qianren, let's go and take a look." There was nothing in this blood-colored hall now, only the throne and the blood-colored statue. He was afraid that the purpose of the two bracelets leading them here was because of these two items. Luo Qingtong walked towards the huge throne, and Yi Qianxian followed beside her, holding her tightly. The two of them approached the huge throne and saw the blood-colored statue sitting on it. Its hands were placed on the blood-colored armrests on both sides, and it was surrounded by eerie white bones. It looked very domineering, as if it was looking down on the world. Luo Qingtong noticed that the blood-colored statue was dressed neatly, but there were no decorations on her white jade-like wrists. Are these two bracelets missing? Luo Qingtong looked at the blood-colored statue, thought for a moment, and raised her hands to take off the two bracelets on her wrist, and put them on the statue's wrists. For some reason, Luo Qingtong felt that there should be two bracelets on the statue's wrists. And these two bracelets should be part of the statue's body. When Luo Qingtong's hands touched the statue's wrists and put the bracelets on her wrist, there was a boom, and the entire statue suddenly lit up. The statue seemed to have come to life. Her skin was like jade, her black hair was like a waterfall, and the blood-colored armor on her body was mighty and domineering. "You're back." The face covered by a thin layer of mist looked up in an instant, and a pair of eyes seemed to penetrate through thousands of worlds, staring at her. Luo Qingtong noticed that the statue's eyes were actually the same as hers, a pair of blood-red eyes. Magnificent like rubies, strange like blood. Countless lives and deaths, and the cycle of all living things, were all reflected in this pair of gorgeous and dazzling red eyes. Blood-red eyes. The statue actually also had blood-red eyes. Luo Qingtong's eyes widened slightly, and before she could respond to the statue's words, the latter's figure suddenly collapsed in front of her. Chapter 27-26. Boom. 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 Luo Qingtong's body suddenly shone brightly. She turned back into a young girl in an instant. The birthmark on her face also disappeared in an instant. Boom. Her body suddenly released a vast and majestic willpower that was like that of a god or a demon. Boom. Luo Qingtong's mind suddenly flashed with scenes. She saw the blood city was vast and powerful. A woman in blood-red armor stood proudly at the top of the city. She looked into the distance with her head held high. Boom. In front of her, there were countless thunderbolts and black clouds rolling. It was as if the sky was falling and the earth was cracking. Seeing this scene, Luo Qingtong heard the woman in blood-red armor sneered and said, "Tian Dao, you want to destroy me?" Luo Qingtong looked at the young girl in blood-red armor. Her face was the same as the statue Luo Qingtong saw in the Blood City Square and in the main hall. It was blurry. But Luo Qingtong could be sure that she was the statue woman. Because she was wearing the two blood bracelets on both of her hands. Luo Qingtong looked at the woman with her head held high and looked in the direction of the Tian Dao. Those thunderbolts were vast and boundless. They were as thick as a hurricane and covered the sky and the earth. Just by looking at them, one could feel the terrifying power contained in those thunderbolts. The power of these thunderbolts was enough to destroy the sky and the earth. Luo Qingtong felt a little suffocated just looking at them. But the young girl in blood-red armor standing proudly on top of the Blood City did not have any change in expression. Luo Qingtong watched as she stood on top of the bloody city. Then, with a boom, her figure suddenly flew out and appeared in the middle of the thunderbolts that were rushing towards her. Boom! Luo Qingtong looked at the blood-red bracelets on her hands. A dazzling light flashed across the sky. Then, with a boom, a pair of blood-red gloves appeared on her hands. In the next second, she waved her hands fiercely. Heaven and earth tyrant fist. As the woman swung her arms, her hands met the thunderbolts in front of her. Enormous thunderbolts that were thick enough to destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth. In the blink of an eye, it shattered into countless pieces in the woman's hand. Boom! Boom! Between heaven and earth, countless sounds of thunder and lightning could be heard. Countless holes seemed to have opened up between heaven and earth. The world split apart, and energy overflowed in all directions. The heavens and the earth fell silent, and all sounds were silent. Luo Qingtong looked at the earth-shattering scene in front of her. The light in her eyes was exceptionally bright and passionate. What a powerful punch! She wanted to learn. The red light in Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered. Her blood-red eyes kept replaying the moment that the woman had punched out. From the angle of the punch to the way it was punched, the strength of the muscle trembling, and the route of the power transmission, everything was slowly presented in Luo Qingtong's eyes. And as her blood-red eyes flickered, a pair of blood-red bracelets appeared on her hands. They were also faintly glowing. A large amount of comprehension of the moves was transmitted into Luo Qingtong's body, helping her to analyze that punch. If not for this, it would be impossible for Luo Qingtong to analyze the power of that punch. But now, with the help of the blood-red bracelets. Chapter 27:27. Boom boom boom. While Luo Qingtong was comprehending in her own consciousness, in the real world, her body suddenly moved. Rays of blood-red light were emitted from the two bracelets that appeared in her hands. In an instant, they turned into a pair of gloves, wrapping around Luo Qingtong's hands. Then, a mysterious force of will wrapped around Luo Qingtong's body. As if it was moving with the wind, Luo Qingtong's body moved as if it was being guided by someone. Boom! She stretched her hands forward. When she stretched her hands forward, the air in the entire great hall surged. The wind was blowing and the clouds were surging. Yi Qianming had been paying attention to Luo Qingtong. He wanted to see if there was anything wrong with her so that he could intervene in time. However, when Luo Qingtong stretched out her hands, in an instant, even he felt a great amount of pressure. Feeling the change in the spiritual energy in the great hall, his eyes narrowed. Then, without making a sound, he dashed to the distance. He could see that Luo Qingtong was comprehending some kind of technique at this moment. If he was not wrong, it should have been given to her by the statue just now. It could also be given to her by the two bracelets in her hands. But no matter which one it was a good thing for Luo Qingtong. The stronger Luo Qingtong was, the better. Yi Qianming's heart was filled with joy and anticipation. He was not afraid that Luo Qingtong would be stronger than him in the future. As long as she could do it, even if he was protected by her and became her pet boy, so what? To truly love someone, it was not to lock her under his wings and imprison her in the name of love. Instead, it was to let her soar and let her become better and stronger. Yi Qianming was never afraid of Luo Qingtong's strength. He was only afraid that she was not strong enough. Before he could arrive in time, she would not be able to protect herself well. Boom! When Luo Qingtong moved, the entire blood city trembled violently. Luo Qingtong's Scarlet Basilica projection world was actually still within the Scarlet City. It was just in another space. At this moment, following Luo Qingtong's actions, the spirit qi in the entire Scarlet Hall surged, and the Scarlet City outside also trembled. The sea of spiritual qi formed by the power of the Great Way where the blood-red city was located was even more turbulent. Huge waves roared and surged recklessly. Boom! Boom! The sea of spiritual energy under the abyss roared and surged like an angry dragon. The water-like power of the Great Way swept up like raging waves, constantly rushing out of the pitch-black abyss. The overflowing Great Path energy shocked Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others who had just arrived at the abyss. Just as they were about to enter the abyss, they were forced out by the roaring and surging power of the great path. Such a rich great path energy, once it went berserk, it was quite terrifying. If Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others wanted to force their way in, they were afraid that they would be torn to pieces by the power inside. Therefore, the group could only wait at the side. However, as the power of the Great Way increased in strength, the width and distance of the abyss were also constantly increasing. Rumble. The cracks on the ground continued to expand, and more rich great path energy surged up. Chapter 27-28. What's going on? In the cave world, Zhang Beiyue and the others had to risk their lives to kill the evil Moon sect members who had gone berserk. They were heavily injured as well. Just as they were about to enter the heart of the continent, they sensed the violent energy fluctuations from the abyss, as well as the terrifyingly dense aura of the power of laws. That aura was more than 100 times stronger than the heart of the continent. Could it be that they had been searching for so long and had found the wrong place? That ancient godly item wasn't in the heart of the continent at all, but somewhere else in the cave world. Didn't that mean that their judgment was wrong from the start? However, when they entered the cave world, including the previous few investigations, there was no other place with a denser great path energy than the heart of the continent. Zhang Beiyue and the others were afraid of making a mistake, so they were very careful and cautious. They checked back and forth many times, which was why they were discovered by the evil Moon sect members. At the same time, they had also recruited people from the Lian and Chu families. If not, why would there be so much trouble? In the end, they were still wrong. Judging from the commotion, it was obvious that the ancient godly item had been obtained by someone. Zhang Beiyue gritted his teeth when he thought of Yu Mingqian, who had chased after Luo Qingtong, and Yi Qianming, who had left after her. He didn't know who had obtained the ancient godly item. However, it was obvious that no matter who had obtained the ancient godly item, they wouldn't be able to deal with them. Let's go. Without hesitation, Zhang Beiyue left with the Zhang family. Behind them, the people from the Lian and Chu families looked at each other in dismay. They looked at the heart of the continent that was close at hand and didn't dare to enter again. The Zhang family had left. Did they think that they were more powerful than the Zhang family? One had to know that their lives were obtained from Luo Qingtong's trade with the Zhang family. If not for that, they would have died in the hands of the evil Moon sect members. One must know that the people from the Zhang family weren't some kind people. If it were not for the deal with Luo Qingtong, they would have been used as human shields when the demonic Moon sect members went berserk. With such thoughts in mind, they no longer had any wild thoughts in their hearts. They directly rushed out of the cave world. Although Chu Yuqing and the others weren't willing to give up and wanted to obtain the Empyrean grass, they didn't dare to force their way into the heart of the continent. Therefore, they gave up and left. Sigh, what a pity. Chu Yuqing gritted his teeth and looked in the direction of the abyss. What was going on? How could there be such a huge commotion? Could it be related to the purpose of the Zhang family's visit? Chapter 27-29. As Chu Yuqing thought this, he inexplicably heaved a sigh of relief. He didn't know why, but after facing Luo Qingtong several times and being slapped in the face, he had developed a sense of fear towards this venerable realm youth. Don't be fooled by how he usually looked down on Luo Qingtong. In fact, he was terrified, but he didn't show it. He was afraid that others would see through it and lose face. Who would dare to believe it? He was a top disciple of the Tianfeng domain's overlord family, yet he was afraid of a venerable realm youth. If word got out, he was afraid that others would laugh their heads off. While Chu Yuqing heaved a sigh of relief, Chu Yufei was also very happy. She looked in the direction of the abyss and carefully controlled her expression so that she wouldn't laugh out loud. Luo Xiaoqi was dead. She was actually dead. Her dream had come true. She didn't have to worry about her causing trouble for her anymore. As for that fool Chu Lingfeng, she had to go back and discuss it with her mother. No matter what, this scourge couldn't be left alive. He was already in the human martial realm. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before he could reach the 9th level of the human martial realm. One had to know that the increase of a small realm was the accumulation of power. And this was Chu Lingfeng's strong point. Once he reached the peak of the human martial realm, perhaps they wouldn't be able to touch him. Not to mention that he still had that bitch of a mother, whom the head of the family could never forget. No matter what, they had to get rid of Chu Lingfeng. They couldn't let him continue to grow like this. While Chu Yufei couldn't help but reveal a sinister expression, Chu Xiaofeng, Guifeng, and the others all looked very disappointed. This time, Xiaoqi, Shi, Huzhan's eyes were red. Guifeng lowered his head and didn't speak, but tightened his grip on the Dragon Slayer's spear in his hand. The enchanting smile on Ouyang Yinyu's face also disappeared. Alright, don't think too much about it. Perhaps Xiaoqi is a good person and will be fine. She forced a smile and comforted the people around her. Guifeng, Chu Xiaofeng, and the others listened without speaking. Ouyang Yinyu's words were clearly meant to comfort them. If Luo Xiaoqi was fine, why didn't she come back with those white jade-masked men? In everyone's mind, it never occurred to them that Luo Qingtong might be the one who obtained the treasure. After all, Yu Mingquan was too strong. Everyone thought that it was already good enough that Luo Qingtong could be rescued by Yi Qianming in time. How was it possible to obtain an ancient divine artifact and cause such a huge commotion? So something must have happened to Luo Qingtong. Everyone was very sad. Along the way, the atmosphere was gloomy. While they were escaping from the cave world, in the Crimson Hole, Luo Qingtong's movements became faster and faster. Chapter 2730. Bang! Luo Qingtong punched out. In an instant, the wind and clouds in the blood-colored hall stirred up. The violent and terrifying power of spirit qi formed a huge hurricane in midair. It was as if it wanted to tear everything apart as it blasted forward. Then, with a boom, the huge blood-colored throne in front of Luo Qingtong in front of the blood-colored hall was torn into pieces by her attack. Blood and white bones flew all over the sky. In this tragic and magnificent scene, the entire blood-colored hall exploded into pieces in an instant. It turned out that the heaven and earth tyrant fist that Luo Qingtong had learned was the only way to leave this blood-colored hall by breaking the projection world. Otherwise, she would be trapped here until she died. Now that Luo Qingtong had learned the heaven and earth tyrant fist, the blood-colored hall that she was in immediately shattered. The moment the blood-colored hall shattered, the sea of spirit qi in the entire abyss erupted with an earth-shattering roar. Then, the power of the great path that filled the skies suddenly surged out. The power of the great path, which was so dense that it had turned into water, seemed to have lost control in an instant. It roared fiercely from the abyss and diffused in all directions. Such a terrifying and heavy power of the heavens and earth was not something that this abandoned continent could withstand. In an instant, the mountains and rivers collapsed and trees snapped wherever the power of the great path spread. On the other hand, the spirit beasts in the dense forest were drowned by the terrifying and vast spiritual qi. They could not absorb such a large amount of power of the great path at all. They could only explode and die. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, the entire cave world turned into a hellish existence. No one knew how terrifying this sea of spirit qi was. No one knew that they had been trapped in the abyss before. Now that they had escaped, they were about to destroy the world. Boom, boom, boom. The people from the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan had just rushed to the entrance of the cave world when they heard an explosion between heaven and earth. Then, the sea of power of the great path that filled the sky rushed over like a flood. The violent waves that were set off drowned most of the cave world in an instant. The rest of the tide was rushing in their direction. Seeing this scene, everyone was horrified to the extreme. They hurriedly ran outside with all their might. They had just rushed out of the cave. Boom! The tide that filled the sky suddenly surged out from behind them and poured into the abandoned continent in all directions. Boom, boom, boom. Countless cracks appeared on the ground. After the sea of spirit chi filled the entire cave world, it began to expand outwards. A series of deep ravines appeared on the abandoned continent. Then, with a loud boom, they exploded. The entire abandoned continent was in an earthquake as if it could be swallowed and annihilated at any time. Boom, boom, boom. Amidst such a loud noise, the powerhouses from the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan who were guarding outside finally felt that something was wrong. They looked at each other and then hurriedly rushed into the abandoned continent. When they saw the scene on the abandoned continent, their faces were instantly filled with horror. Chapter 27:31. Their eyes were filled with shock, and they had no idea what was going on. Where did this vast, earth-shaking power come from? How did it appear on this abandoned continent? The people from the Tianfeng Chu family and the Flying Star Lian family had only come for the Tianluo grass. How could they have known that such a terrifying and majestic power was hidden in this seemingly barren abandoned continent? Looking at the roaring spiritual chi ocean that seemed to want to destroy everything, everyone instantly sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian appeared in the square in the Crimson City. After the Crimson Projection Hall shattered, Luo Qingtong regained her consciousness and was transported out of the hall with Yi Qianxian. At this moment, the huge crimson statue on the huge square had disappeared. In its place was a huge teleportation array. The array was glowing faintly. It was obvious that it was a one-time teleportation array. Once it was activated, it would immediately explode and disappear. Luo Qingtong looked at the huge teleportation array and frowned slightly. She could sense that a huge change had taken place outside, and it seemed to be caused by her. Was it because she had obtained the 2 crimson bracelets? Luo Qingtong looked at the 2 crimson bracelets on her wrists. At this moment, the 2 crimson bracelets were quietly on her wrists, and there was nothing strange about them. They looked just like 2 beautiful crimson bracelets. However, Luo Qingtong clearly remembered the earth-shattering punch that she had unleashed in the world of consciousness. The evil blood bracelet was one of the evil blood sets. The hegemonic fist of heaven and earth that was unleashed with it as the foundation was extremely powerful and could completely destroy heaven and earth. This was the message that the 2 bracelets had transmitted to her back then. However, Luo Qingtong's current strength was not enough to unleash the full power of this move. Moreover, the evil blood bracelet was severely damaged, and the power it contained was less than 1% of its original power. It was unable to assist Luo Qingtong in unleashing this move again. Without the assistance of the evil blood bracelet, Luo Qingtong would only be invincible among her peers when unleashing this move. However, with the assistance of the evil blood bracelet, Luo Qingtong's hegemonic fist of heaven and earth would be invincible among those below the sky martial arts realm. This was because the evil blood bracelet was severely damaged, and its power was greatly reduced. Otherwise, her strength would be far more than this. Luo Qingtong was extremely delighted when she thought of the various messages transmitted from the evil blood bracelet. These 2 bracelets were really the best gains from her trip to the heavens and earth. It was a pity that the evil blood bracelet required a terrifying amount of energy to charge. Otherwise, with this pair of bracelets, who would she be afraid of? But even so, the power of the heaven and earth tyrant fist that she could display was extremely powerful. She had been conflicted before. As her strength increased, the heaven-conquering art that Yi Qianren had taught her was no longer enough. But it was impossible for a man to stay by her side all the time. When her strength increased, he would immediately teach her the new heaven-conquering art. Therefore, Luo Qingtong had long wanted to have a powerful combat skill that belonged solely to her. Now that the hegemonic fist of heaven and earth had appeared, it just so happened to make up for this. Chapter 2732. While Luo Qingtong was thinking, Yi Qianqian's voice rang out. "I'll call Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the rest over," he said in a low voice. Yi Qianxian also sensed the changes in the abandoned continent outside. They were in the Blood City at the moment and were not affected by the turbulent waves of the spirit ocean. But the scene outside was completely different. Yi Qianxian did not bring Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the rest because he was in a hurry to chase after Luo Qingtong. Now he had to bring them over. As for leaving the abandoned continent, he did not consider it at all. After all, the abandoned continent had caused such a big commotion, it must have attracted the attention of the people outside. If they appeared outside the abandoned continent, they would definitely be besieged. It must be because of this reason that the huge teleportation formation in the Blood City was revealed after Luo Qingtong got the blood bracelet. It was so that she could leave this place smoothly. If so, why should he take the risk? Okay. Luo Qingtong nodded, "I'll go with you." Luo Qingtong was also a little worried about Chu Lingfeng, Gui Feng and the rest. Chu Lingfeng was still fine, there was a strong person from the Tianfeng Chu clan guarding outside, nothing would happen to him. But it was different for Gui Feng and the rest. What's more, the people from the Tianfeng Chu clan were bound to be negligent. Thinking of how Chu Lingfeng attracted so many people's attention in the Tianfeng Chu clan, maybe someone wanted to take advantage of the changes in the abandoned continent to kill him. Luo Qingtong thought so and immediately wanted to go out with Yi Qianxian. Anyway, after they brought them over, they could leave through the teleportation formation directly. It was not troublesome. Okay. Yi Qianxian nodded and did not say anything else. He was also worried about leaving Luo Qingtong here alone. If she disappeared in front of him again, that feeling would drive him crazy. "Let's go." He held the girl's waist and suddenly paused. Then, he said to Luo Qingtong, "What about the sex change medicine you took before? Take it out and eat it. Also, cover your face. Don't let others see you." At this moment, the young girl's skin was like jade and her hair was like a waterfall. She was as beautiful as a peony in the mortal world and as delicate as a peach in March. Especially that devilish and domineering aura of hers, it was even more tempting. There were hundreds of red flowers in this world, but Luo Qingtong was the most unique and stunning flower. If possible, Yi Qianxian did not want anyone to see Luo Qingtong like this. She was his woman, from head to toe, down to every single hair on her body. No one is allowed to touch it. Yi Qianxian was the only one who knew how possessive he was. If it weren't for Luo Qingtong's domineering aura and extraordinary abilities, and that she was definitely not the kind of woman who could only rely on others to survive, he might not be able to resist the urge to imprison her by his side so that only he could see her. However, his young girl was a beautiful phoenix soaring in the sky. Once her wings were broken, she would cry blood and die. Therefore, Yi Qianxian could only suppress his possessiveness and accompany her as she grew, let her soar, and even turned into a parasol tree that she could rest on. All for the sake of letting her live a better life. He could not bear to let her suffer, be sad, or be unhappy at all. Therefore, he would rather suppress himself. However, since Luo Qingtong had the sex change medicine and could cover her face, Yi Qianxian was naturally willing to hide her. When she heard his words, Luo Qingtong's brows instantly rose. "How do you know I have that kind of medicine?" At that time, it could block a blow for him. "Okay, don't worry," Little Pig said as he eagerly walked away with the sword in his mouth. As for Lil Furry, it carried him on its back. Anyway, that guy was fluffy and small, so it didn't matter where it was placed. Luo Qingtong sent Little Pig and Lil Furry away. She was still thinking about how to hide her face. She was about to draw a birthmark on her face, but Yi Qianming raised his hand and put a white jade mask on her face. Use this to block it. Yi Qianming's voice was concise. He thought that the birthmark on Luo Qingtong's face could be changed back, but since it couldn't, she could only cover it with a mask. There was a risk of being seen through if she used a disguise. Okay. Luo Qingtong nodded and put on the mask. Chapter 2734. At this moment, the abandoned continent was a scene of devastation and chaos. All around them were cracks in the ground, mountains, rivers, and trees destroyed by the massive sea of spirit energy. Countless cracks formed on the ground, and a large number of trees and stones fell from the sky and crashed into the cracks. The entire abandoned continent was flooded and destroyed by this terrifying sea of spirit energy. It was like the end of the world. The Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan had already found their disciples. They didn't dare to stay any longer and hurriedly took them away from this place. However, the number of experts in the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan was limited. Taking away their own disciples was already the limit. No one cared about Gui Feng and the others at all. They could only let them escape on their own. But with their strength alone, how could they outrun the power of the sea of spirit energy? Just as they were about to be drowned by the power of the sea of spirit energy, Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian appeared in front of them. Boom! Yi Qianxian waved his sleeve. In an instant, the power of the sea of spirit energy that was rushing towards them was frozen in place. Luo Qingtong's figure flashed and appeared in front of them. Little 7. Gui Feng and the others almost burst into tears when they saw Luo Qingtong's figure appear. They thought that Luo Qingtong had died in the cave world. They didn't expect her to be fine. Little 7, it's great that you're fine. We thought that you... Hu Zhan choked up and couldn't continue. Gui Feng and the others also had tears in their eyes. Ouyang Yingyu rushed over and hugged Luo Qingtong. Little 7. Little 7. It's great that you're fine. She was so excited that she couldn't even be bothered to maintain her usual seductive image. She hugged Luo Qingtong and laughed, jumped, and screamed. She didn't notice Yi Qianxian's cold gaze. Fortunately, Ouyang Yingyu was a woman. Although he was very dissatisfied with her holding Luo Qingtong like this, Yi Qianxian could tolerate it. If it was someone else, such as Tiger Zhan and the others, they would have been sent flying by Yi Qianxian in an instant. Thinking of how Luo Qingtong had fought with Gui Feng and the others when she was still Luo Xiaoqi, Yi Qianxian's expression darkened. However, because he was wearing a mask, no one could tell. They only thought that he was cold and aloof. Thank you, brother. Because they knew that Yi Qianxian didn't want to reveal his name, Gui Feng and the others didn't ask for Yi Qianxian's name when they thanked him. Instead, they used the way Luo Qingtong had addressed him. Yi Qianxian's eyes were cold. He ignored them and extended a hand toward Luo Qingtong. Come here. His voice was very concise, but his displeasure could still be heard. Luo Qingtong was amused. She didn't refuse his action. Instead, she put her hand in his and let him pull her to his side. Let's go. She said to Gui Feng and the others, it's not good to stay here any longer. If you believe me, I'll take you out. Luo Qingtong didn't explain too much to Gui Feng and the others. The existence of the evil blood bracelet was no small matter. She wouldn't let others know about it easily. What's more, there were too many things involved. Even if Luo Qingtong wanted to explain, she couldn't explain it clearly. Chapter 2735. All right. Gui Feng and the others agreed without hesitation. They did not hesitate in the slightest. To them, if Luo Qingtong's words were not trustworthy, then who else could be trusted? How many times had this person saved them in this abandoned continent? Originally, they had only wanted to take in Luo Qingtong out of consideration. Who would have thought that this young man, whom they all regarded as their little brother, would save them from danger time and time again? At this moment, in the midst of this torrential flood, who else could remember them besides Luo Qingtong? Who else would be able to save them at this time? It was too superficial to say whether they believed her or not. Gui Feng and the others only knew that as long as Luo Qingtong said a word, they would follow her closely even if they had to climb a mountain of swords or dive into a sea of fire. Even if hell was right in front of them, they would charge forward without hesitation. As for the other mercenaries, there was no need to mention them. They originally only wanted to borrow Luo Qingtong's meticulous observation skills. They really did not respect and take care of Luo Qingtong. However, this young man had saved them time and time again. If Luo Qingtong had not come to this abandoned continent with them this time, all of them had probably died a long time ago. What else could they use other than their lives to repay this kindness? Although they did not say it out loud, in their hearts, they had already recognized Luo Qingtong. As long as she said it, they would not refute her. They would even die with her. In any case, if it were not for Luo Qingtong, they would have died countless times already. Everyone spoke in unison, and there was no voice of objection or doubt. Luo Qingtong nodded and did not say anything. She looked at Yi Qianxian and said, "Qianren, can you sense where Beiqing and Feng Yu are?" This continent was about to collapse. They had to find Beiqing and Feng Yu as soon as possible. Coincidentally, as soon as Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian came out of the hole, they saw Gui Feng and the others not far away. However, they did not see Beiqing and Feng Yu. Luo Qingtong guessed that they had probably been washed away by the spiritual energy storm. After all, Beiqing and Feng Yu were chasing after Yi Qianxian. It was very likely that they had found the abyss. The spiritual energy storm was the most violent. Beiqing and Feng Yu were the first to bear the brunt of it. They had probably been washed far away. Yes, I can sense it. Yi Qianxian's eyes darkened. He had a connection with Beiqing, Feng Yu and the others, so he could sense that they were in a very good situation. But fortunately, no one was in trouble. With this thought in mind, Yi Qianxian immediately took Luo Qingtong to where Beiqing and Feng Yu were. Gui Feng and the others followed closely behind them. Luo Qingtong did not ask Gui Feng and the others about Chu Lingfeng's situation. In fact, when she found that there was not a single member of the Chu or Lian clan among Gui Feng and the others, she knew that they had been taken away by the experts of their respective clans. Since that was the case, she did not need to worry. Chu Lingfeng was taken care of by Chu Jingyi and the others. Snowball was also by his side. Luo Qingtong was not worried about his safety. On the contrary, Chu Lingfeng was safe at this time if she did not have anything to do with him. After all, the commotion she had caused was simply too great. The experts of the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan had no choice but to believe what they said. Chu Xiaofeng even took out a large number of spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs to prove it. Seeing the large number of spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs in his hand, all the experts fell silent. Ah, what a pity! An elder of the Tianfeng Chu clan sighed. The other elders of the Tianfeng Chu family and the Flying Star Lian family sighed, too. That was indeed the case. It was truly a pity for such a talented young man to die in this abandoned continent. But soon, they restrained their expressions. With Yi Qianren's strength, it wouldn't be strange for him to obtain the treasures of this abandoned continent. But no one expected that the one who obtained the treasure was not Yi Qianxian, but Luo Qingtong. But at this moment, no one thought in this direction. Only Beiqing, Feng Yu, and the others had a strange look on their faces. They thought to themselves, could it be that the evil doctor had obtained the treasure on this abandoned continent? At this moment, their group was very inconspicuous among the group of people who had appeared here. No one knew that they had been here before or that they had entered the abandoned continent. Now that they saw the people from the 5 and even 4-star regions appear, they finally realized that the secret hidden in the abandoned continent was probably even greater than they had imagined. The treasure that the people of the Jean family wanted was definitely not something ordinary. Everyone was very surprised. They didn't know if they should be glad that they didn't get the treasure or sigh that they missed the opportunity. Who would have thought that they would be able to sense the collapse of the abandoned continent? It seemed that the ancient divine artifact in the abandoned continent would fall into the hands of the demonic moon sect. After all, with the strength they had displayed, these 4 or 5-star regions were no match for them at all, let alone the person who had obtained the ancient divine artifact on the abandoned continent. No matter how powerful the other party was, he was still alone. On the other hand, the demonic moon sect members were all elites. Not only that, but they also had spirit boats and flying ships as support. Jean Bayue and the others frowned. They had originally stopped here to see if they could take advantage of the situation with so many people. After all, the person who had obtained the primordial divine artifact was most likely the powerful black-clothed man. They might not be his match, and they were also injured. However, if they mixed in with the crowd, they might have a chance. Chapter 2740. Jean Bayue was very depressed. He would rather have someone else obtain the ancient divine item than let the demonic moon sect take advantage of it. If the demonic moon sect had not targeted them, how could so many things have happened on the abandoned continent? Not only did they not obtain anything, but they also suffered injuries all over their bodies. While Jean Bayue was gritting his teeth, the demonic moon sect spaceship had already approached the abandoned continent. All the experts from the 4 or 5-star regions were forced to the side by the aura that it emitted. They could not get close at all. As the abandoned continent continued to disintegrate and collapse, only the centermost area was left. It was the core of the continent, where the cave world was located. The other areas had all disintegrated into dust and scattered in the starry sky. As the demonic moon sect spaceship approached, they could clearly see the blood-red city that had been revealed from the abyss that had completely cracked open on the surface. What a majestic and huge city! Seeing the blood-colored city hidden deep in the abyss and the Zhulong that had completely rotted into white bones, the eyes of a LV-6 Earth Martial Realm expert in the evil moon sect spaceship suddenly burst with an incomparably fervent radiance. Could this be the destination of the Jean family, the place where the ancient divine item is? The level 6 Earth Martial Realm demonic moon sect warrior was very excited. They were ordered to keep an eye on Jean Bayue and the others. However, after the latter and the others entered the Flying Star region, there was no movement. The small demonic moon sect team that had been following them had also disappeared. During this period of time, they had been searching for traces of Jean Bayue and the others nearby. They did not expect to find them at this time. Recalling that they had investigated the purpose of Jean Bayue and the others coming here for an ancient divine object, the eyes of the evil moon sect warrior at the 6th level of the Earth Martial Realm became incomparably excited and emotional. His breathing became heavy. An ancient divine item. Regardless of whether he used it himself or handed it over to the forces after obtaining it, he would have a chance to soar in the future. Furthermore, the Jean family had been so careful earlier. It was clear that this ancient divine item was no small matter. The strong cultivator of the 6th level of the Earth Martial Realm almost laughed out loud. Without hesitation, he ordered everyone to drive the airship into the abandoned continent. At the same time, a group of Earth Martial Arts Realm experts flew out of the spaceship. They all scattered around the periphery of the abandoned continent, not allowing anyone to get close. This ancient divine item belonged to the demonic moon sect. Anyone who dared to approach it would be killed without mercy. The group of Earth Martial Arts Realm cultivators from the evil moon sect flew out. In an instant, the surroundings were completely silent. The group of people from the 4 and 5-star regions had already guessed that this spaceship came from a faction that was at least a 3-star region. Furthermore, it was not an ordinary faction. Now that he saw this group of Earth martial arts realm experts, his heart was completely devoid of any thoughts. These warriors of the Earth martial arts realm were not very strong. Most of them were at the 1st or 2nd level of the Earth martial arts realm, and some of them had just entered the Earth martial arts realm. However, these people were enough to intimidate the powerhouses of the 4 or 5-star regions. Chapter 2741. Needless to say, the people from the 6-star regions were even more so. It was already amazing for their forces to have an expert comparable to the Earth martial arts realm. If they could have an expert who had just entered the Earth martial arts realm, they would be the absolute overlord among the 6-star regions. Even the forces in the 5-star regions would have to give them a head start. However, there were almost no such forces. Even the head of the Tianfeng Chu family, Chu Tianyi, was strong enough to be on par with an ordinary Earth martial arts realm expert. However, he still had not broken through to the Earth martial arts realm. It could be seen how difficult it was to break through to the Earth martial arts realm. At this moment, there were so many Earth martial arts realm experts in front of everyone. There were at least 30 of them. Seeing so many Earth martial arts realm experts, no one dared to make a sound. When Zhang Beiyue and the others saw this scene, they felt even more depressed. Damn it! The experts of our Zhang family are not here. Otherwise, we would definitely teach these people from the Evil Moon sect a lesson. The middle-aged man beside Zhang Beiyue said coldly. He was the person who had praised Luo Qingtong before. At this moment, he looked in the direction of the Evil Moon sect's flying ship and gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. Their days of hard work had all been taken advantage of, and they could not do anything because they were seriously injured. It was so King frustrating. I wonder who obtained that ancient divine object. If it's that black-clothed man, he might be able to escape from the hands of these Evil Moon sect members. A Zhan family member said. After all, the scene of Yu Mingqian controlling the people from the Evil Moon sect was still vivid in their minds. If Yu Mingqian got that ancient divine item, he might have a chance to escape. Of course, this was also a possibility. After all, these people from the Evil Moon sect were not only strong, but they also had a flying spiritual tool. The power contained in this flying spiritual tool was enough to seriously injure an expert at the 9th level of the Earth martial arts realm. If that man in black did not have a backup plan, he would not be a match for these people from the Evil Moon sect. When everyone thought of this, they felt even more depressed. At this moment, the middle-aged man suddenly muttered, if only that young man called Luo Shaoqi is fine and obtained that ancient divine artifact. With her schemes, strange abilities, and endless trump cards, she might be able to render the demonic moon sect members helpless. At this point, he sighed and said, what a pity, what's a pity? Naturally, it was a pity that Luo Qingtong had no chance of surviving Yu Mingqian's attack. Even if he was lucky enough to survive, it would be impossible for him to obtain that ancient divine artifact. Chapter 2742. Rumble. The flying ship that the demonic moon sect members were in seemed to have crashed through the sea of spiritual energy in the abandoned continent and appeared above Blood City. Boom! A group of demonic moon sect members who were around level 4 of the Earth martial realm appeared beside the flying ship. That strong cultivator of the 6th level of the Earth martial realm led the group, and with a swoosh, they rushed into the Blood City. It's the demonic moon sect members. Luo Qingtong and the rest had already entered the square. When they saw the demonic moon sect members rushing over, Luo Qingtong's gaze froze. She had dealt with the demonic moon sect members before and naturally recognized their power symbol. As for Gui Feng and the rest, they recognized the identity of the people who had just arrived and their hearts sank. The people from the demonic moon sect must be very powerful. Especially the figures rushing over at this moment, they were far more powerful than the demonic moon sect members they had encountered in the heart of the continent. Obviously, they were more powerful than those people. As they thought of this, their hearts sank. The demonic moon sect members from before were already powerful enough. These people were even more powerful than them. Did they still have any hope of escaping? They looked at Luo Qingtong, who had risked her life to save them, and their eyes darkened. They made a decision to Luo Qingtong and said, "Little Seven, quickly take your men and leave with this brother. We'll stay behind to cover your retreat." "Yes. Little Seven, quickly take this brother and his men and leave. We'll help you stop the demonic moon sect members." The group of mercenaries knew that they would have no chance of surviving against the demonic moon sect members. However, Luo Qingtong was different from Yi Qianxian and the rest. If they were to stop the demonic moon sect members, even if it was only for a moment, it would be enough for them to leave with their men. Luo Qingtong had saved their lives several times. Now, it was their turn to block the disaster for her. However, Luo Qingtong shook her head and said, "No need, they can't hurt us. On the contrary, you should leave first. Help me bring them along." She was referring to Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others. They had been severely injured in the spirit qi ocean, so they could not use their strength. Luo Qingtong had to send them out of the abandoned continent to avoid being targeted by the evil moon sect. As for her and Yi Qianxian, there was no need to worry. With this man around, she would be fine. They could kill their way out of the abandoned continent. But Gui Feng and the others didn't know Yi Qianxian's true strength and wanted to say something, but they were interrupted by Bei Qing and Feng Yu. "Yes. Young master, take care of yourselves." Bei Qing and Feng Yu knew Yi Qianxian's strength very well. As long as his meridians were fine, he could take Luo Qingtong and kill their way out of the abandoned continent. On the other hand, if they stayed here, they would only be a burden to their master and the demonic moon sect's doctors, distracting them. Therefore, they agreed without hesitation. Hearing their words, Gui Feng and the others realized that Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian probably had other ways to leave. In that case, if they insisted on staying, they would only cause more trouble. With that thought in mind, everyone swallowed the words that were about to come out of their mouths. "All right, Little Seven, don't worry, we'll protect them." Chapter 2743. Gui Feng nodded at Luo Qingtong and led the group toward the teleportation array in the middle of the square. As they left, the group of demonic moon sect members appeared in front of Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian. "Stop." Seeing Gui Feng and the others rush toward the teleportation array in the square, the demonic moon sect members' expressions changed. Especially when they realized that the teleportation array was a one-time use teleportation array, they became even more furious. They already knew that the treasures inside had been taken away by someone else. The person who took the treasures was probably among these people who were preparing to leave. How could they let these people leave? At that moment, the demonic moon sect leader, who was at Earth Martial Realm level 6, shouted angrily, "Stop them." The group of people quickly rushed toward Gui Feng and the others, completely ignoring Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian, who were standing not far in front of them. In the eyes of these demonic moon sect members, these two people were either extremely stupid and had voluntarily stayed behind to throw away their lives to stop them, or they were simply too weak and had been abandoned by those people. No matter which it was not worth their time and energy to deal with them. Otherwise, they would really play into the hands of those who wanted to escape. Therefore, they did not even look at Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian. One of the demonic moon sect members who had rushed in front of Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian directly attacked the two of them. "Get lost." As far as he was concerned, this strike was sufficient to take their lives. However, bang! Yi Qianren waved his sleeves. In an instant, the demonic moon sect martialist's power was reflected back at a speed even faster than his own. With a blood-curdling scream, the demonic moon sect cultivator was sent flying backward, instantly smashing into a large group of demonic moon sect cultivators who were flying over. Bang, bang, bang. Many of the demonic moon sect members were smashed to the ground. The group of Earth martial arts realm experts did not even have room to dodge the demonic moon sect expert who had been sent flying by Yi Qianxian. They were smashed to the ground. As for the evil moon sect martial artist who had been sent flying by Yi Qianxian, there was no sign of life. Seeing this scene, the faces of those demonic moon sect members who were not hit changed. They looked at Yi Qianren with eyes full of shock and indescribable shock. With one strike, he sent a warrior of the Earth martial arts realm flying and dying. In fact, the other party didn't even use his own strength. Just by relying on the shockwave from his counterattack, the other party was already able to exert such might. The face of the leader of the group, who was at the 6th level of the Earth martial realm, suddenly changed. He naturally knew the power of Yi Qianxian's attack. It was definitely not something that could be easily accomplished. His opponent was at least an expert of the 6th level of the Earth martial realm like him. Or even stronger. Previously, he had thought that the other party was stupid and had come to die. Now, it seemed like a joke. Are you the ones who obtained that ancient divine item? The leader of the group, who was at the 6th level of the Earth martial realm, asked with a gloomy face. With the other party's strength, it was impossible for those who had left to be stronger than him. If that was the case, the other party did not need to run at all. Just a few people would be enough to kill them. In fact, this was the case. If Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others had not temporarily lost their strength due to the impact of the Sea of Great Path energy, they would not have been able to escape. Chapter 2744. The group had already run to the center of the square and activated the transportation array. The leader of the group was certain that Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian had obtained the ancient divine item, so he didn't pay any attention to them. After all, it didn't matter if unimportant people ran away. The two people in front of him were the real deal. When Guifeng and the others left, the corners of Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. Then she leaned against Yi Qianming's body and crossed her arms. So what? So what if it's not? When she said those words, in a flash, the cultivator of the 6th Earth Qi layer was enraged. He looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong and said coldly, "Yes, then leave the treasure behind and I can let you go." If it's not, he sneered at Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming, then don't blame us for being impolite. With the other party's strength, it was impossible for the treasure not to be in their hands. The only possibility was that they didn't want to give it up. Since that was the case, they could only take it by force. This expert of the 6th level of the Earth martial realm was very confident in the strength of his side. So what if the other party's man was powerful? Unless the other party's strength had already surpassed the Earth martial arts realm and reached the Sky martial arts realm. Otherwise, one attack from their flying boat would be enough to seriously injure the other party. Therefore, even though he knew that Yi Qianming's strength was very strong and was most likely above his own, the leader of the evil moon sect remained calm and still had the mood to threaten Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming. In fact, if Yi Qianming hadn't revealed too much strength, he was afraid that the other party would fight to the death. At that time, they wouldn't be able to gain any advantage. Therefore, he agreed to let Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming go after obtaining the treasure. Otherwise, based on their style and behavior, they would definitely kill the other party to prevent future troubles. This cultivator of the 6th level of the Earth martial realm thought. He raised his head and looked at Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming, waiting for their answers. In fact, he was just waiting for Yi Qianming's answer. However, Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming looked very close, so he didn't ignore each other. As for the latter's strength at the Violet Exalt realm, he didn't take it seriously at all. Looking at his arrogant thoughts, Luo Qingtong's lips curled. Then, she slowly nodded and said, "Oh, in that case, we can only—" She paused and then looked at the cultivator of the sixth layer of the earth martial arts realm who had pricked up his ears. She coldly said, "I won't be polite to you first." Luo Qingtong said and then said to Yi Qianming, "Brother, let's go." In front of outsiders, Luo Qingtong called Yi Qianming by his previous title. The latter doted on her and let her play with him. Chapter 27:45. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately shouted at the spirit boat in the distance, "Activate the spirit boat and attack." As soon as his voice left his mouth, the gigantic spirit vessel that was hovering in the sky above Blood City began to accumulate its power. This level 6 Earth Martial Realm cultivator was the actual controller of this spirit boat. His command was received by the spirit boat in an instant. At the same time, he and the rest of the demonic moon sect members quickly retreated. They no longer besieged Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming. Instead, they opened up a path for them to escape. Let's see where they can escape to under the attack of the spirit boat. The level 6 Earth Martial Realm cultivator thought to himself as he sneered silently on his face. Boom! A violent and terrifying power exploded in an instant. It was as if countless cannons had been concentrated in one spot, releasing an incomparably terrifying and magnificent attack. All the power on the spirit boat had been concentrated in one spot. With a loud boom, an extremely violent and terrifying attack flew wildly towards Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming. The sound of the explosion produced by the power tore through the sky in an instant, evaporating all the water vapor condensed from the sea of spiritual qi. Their surroundings were filled with terrifying and deep black holes. It was a terrifying sight. An unbearably sharp aura overflowed from within. Rumble. The attack was like a dragon and a sword, like a hurricane and waves, like a storm rising from the ground. It blotted out the sky and covered the earth as it flew wildly towards Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming. Yi Qianming narrowed his eyes at the sight of this. Within his body, a terrifyingly large aura, which could shatter the heavens and earth, was being mobilized. The power of this aura was so strong that Yi Qianming had only mobilized a little of it. It was as if a dragon's roar, a phoenix's cry, a tiger's roar and a wolf's howl had rung out from within his body. The sound was resounding and sonorous. It was like the roar of a sword and halberd and the roar of a dragon. It was bleak and austere. Boom! Just as Yi Qianming was mobilizing the power within his body, a figure suddenly flew towards them from afar and blocked the attack from the spirit boat. Bang! Following the appearance of that figure, the ferocious attack from the spirit boat collided with it in an instant. The frighteningly violent aura of power shot out in all directions, causing everyone's expression to change. Damn it! Who is it? They actually blocked this attack. The evil moon sect warrior at LV6 of the Earth Martial Realm had an ugly look on his face. There was only so much power in the spirit boat, and it could only launch 2 such attacks at most. Originally, he was determined to succeed in this attack, but in the end, it was wasted. Who knew if the last attack would hit its target? They deserved to die. Who was it that didn't care about their lives and actually rushed over to block such an attack? The level 6 realm cultivator was Yi Qianming Sects Martial Realm Cultivator's Martial Realm was Martial Realm Cultivator's Martial Realm. He stared intently at Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming and was about to order his men to attack again. However, at this moment, at the place where the spirit boat's attack collided with the figure, the aura of the aftermath of the collision dispersed, revealing the scene inside. This is, Luo Qingtong looked in front of her in shock. She saw a figure standing at the intersection of the attack, completely unharmed. Yi Qianming narrowed his eyes when he saw the figure. Swoosh! His figure, which had been flying outwards, suddenly flew back and stood at the spot he had just left. It's you. Chapter 27:46. When his voice rang out, everyone saw that a group of people had appeared behind that figure. The strength and aura of those people were not the least bit inferior to the figure that had just appeared. There were even a few figures whose aura was stronger than that of the figure that had just appeared. Seeing those figures appear, the LV6 Earth Martial Realm cultivator's face instantly revealed an extremely horrified expression. It was not because of anything else. The figure that had appeared under the attack of the spirit boat was so strong. That was the attack of the spirit boat. One attack was enough to kill an expert below the LV9 Earth Martial Realm. Even an expert at the LV9 Earth Martial Realm would be seriously injured under such an attack. However, that figure was not the slightest bit injured. Not only that, but the aura of those people who had appeared was obviously not much different from that figure's aura. What did that mean? It meant that the strength of those people and that figure was definitely above the LV9 Earth Martial Realm. Above the LV9 Earth Martial Realm. What did that mean? The Sky Martial Realm. The Sky Martial Realm. The LV6 Earth Martial Realm cultivator from the Evil Moon sect was completely dumbfounded. He looked at those figures that had appeared in front of him and the others, completely not knowing what was going on. He had originally thought that someone had suddenly jumped out to die and ruined his plans. Who would have thought that those people's strength would actually be so tyrannical? One had to know that there were not many experts with the strength of the Sky Martial Realm even in the one-star region. The few who did were all in the top forces. The top forces of the one-star region. Who knew how many times they could crush the forces of the three-star region? Even if the Evil Moon sect was already considered a super force in the three-star region, it was still the same. In all their lives, these people from the Evil Moon sect had only heard of the strength of the Sky Martial Realm, but they had never seen it with their own eyes. That was because such experts all stood at the top of the world. They were simply not people that people like them could see. They were not strong enough, nor were they qualified. However, at this moment, there were so many Sky Martial Realm experts in front of them. Everyone glanced over and shockingly saw over a dozen Sky Martial Realm experts. Compared to the number of people on their side, this number was really not much. However, as soon as they thought about the strength of these people, any one of whom could easily flatten the three-star domain they were in, the group of Evil Moon sect members shuddered. They wished they could faint right now. Some people were so scared that they wet their pants and collapsed on the ground, almost unconscious. Chapter 27:47. In an instant, their bodies were severed at the waist, and their corpses were strewn across the ground. Bang! 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 Their corpses fell from the sky. The people on the gigantic spirit ship in the sky were scared out of their wits when they saw the corpses of the Evil Moon sect members below. In the blink of an eye, they immediately drove the spirit boat and fled outside. Rumble. The spirit ship in the sky rushed outside as if it was being chased by a ghost. At this moment, the size of the abandoned continent had already collapsed to the center of the cave world. The people outside could clearly see the spirit boat flying out from inside as though it had seen a ghost. The 4-, 5-star, and 6-star regions forces outside had no idea what was going on when they saw this scene. How could this terrifying killing machine rush out of the abandoned continent as if it was being chased by a ghost? What was happening inside? Before they could make any guesses, they saw an earth-shattering attack shoot out from the abandoned continent with a boom. Then, with a loud bang, the gigantic spirit ship, which was like a peerless killing machine in the eyes of the 4-, 5-star, and 6-star regions elites, was crushed into countless pieces by a spirit energy hand that had appeared out of nowhere. It was crushed into a ball by the large hand, and with a bang, it was crushed into countless pieces. The Evil Moon sect's martial artists who had just entered the Earth martial arts realm guarding the abandoned continent did not escape the fate of death. They were all killed by the strong wind that swept up when the large hand rushed out. The crowd of people from various forces who were watching from afar had indescribable shock and horror on their faces. They looked at the spirit ship that had been crushed into countless pieces, then looked at the evil moon sect members who had been killed by the strong wind from the attack. They finally knew that an extremely terrifying change must have occurred in the abandoned continent. A force that surpassed the 3-star regions and above had arrived. Moreover, it was an extremely powerful force that far surpassed the top forces of the 3-star regions. Oh my God! The crowd looked at the scene in front of them in shock. Everyone was as silent as cicadas in winter. Everyone clearly understood that this battle for the treasure was no longer something they could participate in. They would not even have the chance to fish in troubled waters. After all, the strength of the person who was able to crush the gigantic spirit ship with one blow was probably beyond their imagination. What kind of person had appeared? 2-star regions. 1-star regions. The crowd guessed in horror. Only Jean Bayou and the others knew that the person who had appeared was far beyond their imagination. Young master. The middle-aged man standing beside Jean Bayou swallowed his saliva desperately. He looked in the direction of the abandoned continent with extreme shock. Yes, it's a sky martial arts realm elite. Jean Bayou finished his words. They were not from the 4-5-star and 6-star regions around them. They came from the 3-star region. Naturally, they knew that the attack that could crush the evil moon sect spirit ship came from a sky martial realm elite. It was no wonder the evil moon sect members of their minds. Chapter 2748. Even if the Jean family joined forces with all the forces in the 3-star domain, they would not be a match for such a powerhouse. The other party could easily massacre them. The existence of a treasure on this abandoned continent had attracted such a powerhouse. However, powerhouses like them were rare even in a 1-star domain. Why would they appear in a 6-star domain? It had to be known that even they looked down on this 6-star domain. If they did not know that the ancient divine object was here, they would never have set foot here. Not to mention those sky martial realm powerhouses. They might not even go to their 3-star domain. Why would they appear here? Could it be that the other party had also obtained information about the ancient divine object like them? Jean Bayou and the others guessed in horror. While they were guessing in their hearts, they did not know that the other party's purpose was not the ancient divine object at all. Your Highness. The figure in the aftermath of the collision immediately knelt down on one knee after killing the evil moon cult members and the spirit ship. She bowed to Yi Qianxian and said, Situ Mei, greets your Highness. Long live your Highness. As her voice sounded, the power around her exploded with a bang, scattering all the aftershocks around her. The face that was revealed was beautiful and cold. It was Situ Mei, the one who had led the heavenly dark guard outside the true Spill continent to invite Yi Qianxian back to the palace under the orders of the Emperor of the Celestial Capital. Behind her, a group of Celestial Capital powerhouses who were on par with her, even those who had won, knelt down and said, The 18 commanders of the heavenly dark guard kneel and greet your Highness. Your Highness, please return to the palace with us. Your Highness, please return to the palace. A heavenly dark guard commander, who was stronger than Situ Mei, looked at Yi Qianxian and said in a deep voice, Your Highness, your days are numbered. The Emperor has given the order to marry a woman you like in the 4-star skies. This is the Celestial Capital's 100-year plan. Your Highness, please do not be capricious. Yes. As he spoke, Situ Mei's voice sounded. Her pair of cold eyes stared at Yi Qianxian, seeming to contain a myriad of emotions. However, she did not show any of it on her face as she advised, Your Highness, any woman in the world is yours to desire. As long as you are willing, the Emperor will not force you to marry according to his wishes. As long as your highness is able to forget about that woman whose status and strength are incomparably low, the emperor will no longer object to you marrying anyone in the four-way heaven. Your highness, please return with us. In fact, Situ Meher's heart was very happy. Celestial capital was celestial capital, celestial capital, celestial capital, celestial capital and celestial capital. When they had Yi Qianxian, they had celestial capital, 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 se celestial capital, celestial to him, celestial all, celestial capital, celestial capital, celestial capital, celestial capital, celestial capital. But Yi Qianxian did not go to celestial capital, celestial capital. Although this didn't mean anything, it was likely that Yi Qianxian had come to this celestial capital, celestial capital, celestial capital, celestial capital, celestial capital, celestial capital to heal his wounds. Situ Meher was still very happy. Chapter 2749. Since His Highness didn't go over, did it mean that Luo Qingtong was not that important in His Highness's heart? Perhaps His Highness was interested in her for the time being and wanted to go against His Majesty, so he deliberately found such a lowly person to anger His Majesty. In fact, he didn't care so much about Luo Qingtong. As Situ Mei thought of this, the joy in her heart was indescribable. But soon, the smile on her face froze. She saw Luo Qingtong in Yi Qianxian's arms. The latter was held in Yi Qianxian's arms, looking very serious. It seemed that he was protecting the treasure in his hand, the treasure in his heart. Situ Mei had never seen Yi Qianxian so concerned about a person. Who was this young man? How could he be so favored and loved by His Highness? Situ Mei looked at Luo Qingtong with a cold light flashing in her eyes. She was about to ask about Luo Qingtong's identity when Luo Qingtong's voice suddenly rang out. Brother-in-law, what are they talking about? A lowly woman. Are they talking about my sister? Are you going to marry someone else? Luo Qingtong raised her head, looking innocent and naive. When Situ Mei and the others spoke, she had already guessed their identities. People from Tiandu. Luo Qingtong had long been familiar with the things in Tiandu. Yuelao, Beiqing, Fengyu, and the others often mentioned this matter by her side. Last time, when she and Yi Qianxian contacted each other through the 10 Dragons Ring and 9 Phoenix Ring, she had also been to Tiandu as a spiritual body. Although she had only stayed in Yi Qianxian's courtyard, she had been there. However, other than Beiqing and Fengyu, this was the first time she had seen someone from Tiandu. These people were forcing Yi Qianxian to return, forcing him to marry and leave behind his bloodline. And he even called her a woman of low status. Luo Qingtong smiled. She was not a pushover. Since these people were using the method of breaking up a pair of mandarin ducks on her head, then don't blame her for making them suffer. How dare she steal her man? Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She was not someone who could only rely on her identity as Yi Qianxian to get back at them. One day, she would fight her way to Tiandu and tell these people who this man belonged to. But now, she was going to collect some interest. Luo Qingtong's voice was clear, and her eyes were full of innocence. She had returned to her previous appearance of Luo Xiaoqi. She was not stupid enough to expose her identity at this time and give these people a chance to target her and use her to restrain Yi Qianxian. There were many ways to deal with these people and vent her anger. Why should she put herself in danger? Let's see how I deal with them. The moment Luo Qingtong's words came out, the group of Tiandu experts frowned. Situ Mei's expression changed abruptly. Sister. Are you Luo Qingtong's brother? Chapter 2750. Thinking of this, Situ Mei's heart was suddenly filled with unspeakable shame and jealousy. She looked at Luo Qingtong with eyes full of disgust and coldness. This young man was Luo Qingtong's younger brother. He was really a slut's younger brother, just like his sister, disgusting and disdainful. Situ Mei despised Luo Qingtong in her heart, but on the surface, she tried her best to control her expression, not wanting others to see through it. But who was Luo Qingtong? Her eyesight was unparalleled. Unless Situ Mei could control every nerve and every muscle on her face and adjust her expression like a robot, she would be able to see through Situ Mei's thoughts with a single glance. This woman, was she jealous of her? Because of what? Was it because of this man? Luo Qingtong glanced at Yi Qianxian beside her and snorted softly. This damned man, he always said that she attracted bees and butterflies, and that she was spoiled because of his pampering. She didn't know who attracted more bees and butterflies. Luo Qingtong's lips curved up sweetly, looking at Situ Mei, who couldn't hide the jealousy and coldness in her eyes. Laughing softly, she said with a puzzled look, "Hey, auntie, why are you looking at me with such an ugly and scary expression? Is it because my sister is going to marry my brother-in-law? You also like my brother-in-law?" She looked at Situ Mei, innocently, then suddenly realized, so it's like this. You people are so sinister. I knew it. You're an ugly freak, you don't have the slightest bit of beauty like my sister, and your strength and talent can't compare to her. If my sister was born in Tiandu like you, who knows how many times she would have crushed you. I really don't know where you got the face to slander my sister. So it's because you also like my brother-in-law and want to snatch him away, that's why you deliberately said that. It's a pity that my brother-in-law only likes my sister. Brother-in-law, don't you think so? As Luo Qingtong said this, her hands quietly pinched Yi Qianqian's armpits. I dare you to say no. Yi Qianren's figure stiffened. As soon as Luo Qingtong called him brother-in-law, he knew that the other party was up to no good. This woman was as ruthless as an Azura, and as cunning as a fox. Yi Qianxian didn't open his mouth and just watched her ridicule Situ Mei. In fact, he didn't care about Situ Mei's thoughts at all. Whether she liked him or not, it had nothing to do with him. In his heart, there was only Luo Qingtong. He didn't care about anyone else. But why did this woman pinch him? Yi Qianqian's body stiffened for a moment. He almost failed to control the power that was accumulating in his body and hurt Luo Qingtong. Ever since Situ Mei and the others had arrived, he had been on high alert, ready to make a move at any time, but this woman had still come to provoke him. Did she know that he had almost sent her flying? Yi Qianxian gritted his teeth and looked at Luo Qingtong. Seeing that she wanted to pinch him a second time, he hurriedly raised his hand and grabbed her hands. Then, he coldly said to the group of Tiandu experts opposite him, "That's right, I only love Luo Qingtong. In this life, I will marry no one but her. Unless father agrees to my condition, I will not return to Tiandu. And I will not marry anyone." After Yi Qianxian said this, he didn't forget to pinch Luo Qingtong's hand. Was it good now? This woman, really, was so complacent even when she was praising herself. As Yi Qianxian thought this, the corners of his lips curled up. In his heart, he really liked Luo Qingtong's way of taking him to heart, declaring her sovereignty to others, and not allowing anyone to touch him. This meant that this woman cared about him as much as he cared about her. Chapter 2751. Your Highness. Do you know what you're saying? How can a slut like Luo Qingtong be worthy of you? She gritted her teeth as she spoke. Luo Qingtong's voice rang out leisurely. Yes, someone like my sister isn't worthy, but someone like you, who can't compare to my sister in every aspect, is. She's a slut, but who are you? Someone who can't even compare to a slut, a slut. The moment Luo Qingtong's words left her mouth, Situ Mei Er's eyes burned with rage. Shut up. Lowly scum like you don't have the right to speak here. Your Highness, since you're so stubborn, then don't blame us for being rude. Situ Mei Er's eyes were cold. She looked at Yi Qianming. The latter's indifferent gaze towards her just now made her furious. Why? She couldn't even get a single glance from this man. And that woman called Luo Qingtong could be placed in the palm of his hand and protected like a treasure. Even her brother dared to be so presumptuous in front of her. Ugly person, not comparable to Luo Qingtong. Every word that came out of the youth's mouth pierced Situ Mei Er's body like needles. She was insulted by a youth who was Luo Qingtong's brother, and Yi Qianming even affirmed the other party's words. The jealousy in Situ Mei Er's heart exploded in an instant. Boom! Her figure swept towards Luo Qingtong in an instant. She dared to call her an ugly person and said that she couldn't compare to Luo Qingtong. Slut! She wanted to see if the other party could bear the consequences of saying such malicious words. Attack! Bring His Highness back to Tiandu. Kill the rest without mercy. Situ Mei Er's voice was filled with murderous intent. Other than them, there was only Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming left. Who else could she be referring to besides Luo Qingtong? When the 18 celestial capital experts heard Situ Mei Er's words, they immediately rushed towards Yi Qianming without hesitation. As for Luo Qingtong, if he killed her, then so be it. The other party was the younger brother of that woman called Luo Qingtong. Killing him might be able to sever the bond between His Highness and that woman. Speaking of which, it was strange that His Highness seemed to be possessed by the devil. He insisted on being together with that girl called Luo Qingtong. She was clearly just a young girl from a low-level continent in the 9-star domain. In their own homes, even if they were servants, they wouldn't use a woman of such status. His Highness had really been bewitched this time. With this thought in mind, everyone immediately rushed towards Yi Qianming. Everyone knew that Yi Qianming had fought with Emperor Tiandu before and was seriously injured. His meridians were broken and he wouldn't be able to use his full strength in a short period of time. Furthermore, it was very likely that he would not be able to use his full strength in the future. Under such circumstances, they weren't afraid that Yi Qianming would do anything to them. If it weren't for this, they wouldn't have dared to chase after Yi Qianming with just a dozen people. It had to be known that when Situ Mei went to True Spill Continent to invite Yi Qianming back to the palace, she had directly mobilized the heavenly profound guards. When they rushed towards Yi Qianming, the latter's eyes suddenly turned cold and he prepared to use the strength in his body. The meridians in his body had already been repaired and upgraded by Luo Qingtong. He didn't need to use his full strength to deal with these people. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.